Hello everyone. Before we formally start our classes for today, um, let us first offer a prayer. Uh, so, Dimpas, can you please lead a prayer for us?
Okay, sir. So let us put ourselves to the holy presence of God as we always say. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven.
Give
Give
us this
us
day
this day
our daily bread
bread
and
and
forgive
forgive
us
us
our sins, as we
as we
forgive those who sin against us. Do not bring us to the test, but deliver us from evil. Amen. In the name of the Father. So, once again, hello everyone. Let me just check your attendance first so that we can now proceed to our discussion. So just say present if you are here. So Akla, uh, Dimpas,
Sir, present, sir.
Masayon,
Present, sir.
Roble,
Present, sir.
Seno.
Present.
Very good. So everyone is present for today. Uh, yes, very good. So before we start, do you know the topic that we will be having for today? Does anybody have an idea on the topic that we will be discussing? Wala. So, so our topic for today will be choral speaking or reading. Now that I've introduced the topic, uh, now may ka ng mga bisan brief idea about the topic kung unsa ni siya. Anyone? Ah, okay. So, uh, choral reading or speaking, choral speaking or reading is reading, performing a poem in groups, just like in churches or in celebrations. Uh, you can see a lot of uh, people per- performing a poem in choir. So let me share my PowerPoint first. So choral speaking or reading. Cor uh, Seno, can you please read the definition of choral speaking?
Uh,
Ah,
Pwede next slide. So,
ay, sorry. Wala din nun.
okay.
Ah,
Choral reading or speaking is the interpretation of poetry by several voices speaking as one. It is the group interpretation of poetry for the purpose of sharing enjoyment and increasing enjoyment of it. Choral reading involves the use of a book or scripts.
so just like, thank you so much for reading, Seno. So just like I said earlier, choral reading or speaking is a means of conveying or interpreting a poem or a piece by in unison by groups. Yes. So history of choral speaking. Choral speaking is not a recent development. The Hebrew had the antiphonal chorus, the chanting of prayers or hymn, alternately by two groups or by a leader and a choir which gave the responses. In the Greek dramas, a chorus recites the main action of the play to hold the plot together. In England, France, and Germany, the troubadours chanted and recited tales of heroic deeds in verse, and their audiences must have joined in reciting the refrains. Without being aware of it, many of us in the Philippines and even our ancestors have participated in choral speaking in church and at home, especially in reciting the prayers and rosary. So, kaning choral speaking or reading is an ancient tradition to uh, pareha ng mga prayers, celebration of kanang mga heroic tales, or kanang naay mag-celebrate then chanting. Ingana mao ni siya ang examples of choral speaking in the ancient times. So makita pa ninyo akong screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sige. So, kadiyot sa ah, so the use ah, kadiyot sa so the uses of choral speaking. Hala, uses of choral speaking. Choral speaking can be used in school at all levels. It is an activity that children and adults of any age can enjoy. For children of preschool and kindergarten level, the Mother Goose rhymes, nonsense verses and jingles with a very marked rhythm can be used. Children in the elementary grades would enjoy poems with narrative interest, vivid imagery, and strong rhythm, while elder children would prefer poems they could interpret with feeling. So, as we can observe, every level has their own preferences when it comes to the poems they are interested. For example, this kaning mga preschool and kindergarten level, uh, they like poems. They are more interested in poems uh, which will catch their attention and easy to pronounce, easy to memorize, and easy to perform. Sa oh, so as the child grows, magkausab jud ang iyahang interest depend sa environment. So, for example, sa mga ang hilig sa mga bata is kanang mga adventures, uh, games na topics about games. Pero when it comes to the adolescents, mga high schoolers, they are more interested about dramas, poems, uh, which the topic is love, friendships, uh, and other things nga appropriate for their age. So poems for suitable for choral speaking. So can you please read Roble?
Poems which are universal in tone, poems which vary in mood, content, and type, poems that are lyrical and narrative, poems that are rich in auditory image, poems with marked rhythm, poems that can be used with three voices.
So thank you so much, Roble, for reading. So there are many kinds of poems, and here are the examples. First one is poems which are universal in tone, meaning uh, almost all the readers kanang masabtan nila or yes kanang sayon na para sa ila i-perform. Poems which vary in mood, content, and type. So these are the poems which, like I said earlier, katong sa mga high school, about love, appeal nila ang mga mood, sadness, happiness, mga ingana. Poems that are lyrical and narrative. These are the types of poems which can be used in songs because kung imo siyang butangan og tone, the poem can be converted into a song na poems that are rich in auditory image. These poems are uh, popular to children because madani man sila sa visual representation sa poems. Poems with marked rhythm. These these kinds of poems also are appropriate for children kay dali ra para nila i-sag-o, ma-memorize ra dahil nila, easy for them to be familiar with. Excuse me. Poems that can be used with three voices. So mao ni siya kanang mag ilis-ilis ka o tone sa imong voice na voice blending. So we will discuss that later. So types of choral speaking arrangement. There are four basic types of choral arrangements. Five day. Ano, there are five basic types of choral arrangements. So refrain, sequence, antiphonal, unison, and line a child. Uh, So, so for the refrain, this type is used with poetry which contains lines or verses which are repeated. Originally, such poems are recited with minstrels saying the verses and the audience reciting the refrains and choruses. The narrative can be recited by a solo voice or a smaller group of voices, and the entire group responds by giving the refrain. So, one suitable type for these arrangements are ballads because it is good for beginners. So, for the second, which is sequence, this type is best employed in poems which develop it thought into a strong climax, or which two lines are cumulative in response. The solo voices and the semi-choruses take turns saying the lines, and then the entire chorus enters to build a climax and an impressive finale. So, the antiphonal. The antiphon is a tradition form of reciting biblical verses. Thus, many of the psalms, such as "The Lord is my shepherd" and passages like the Beatitudes, are best interpreted by using the antiphonal. Ah, sorry. The uh, In this type of arrangement, one group responds to another, boy to girls, children in one row to another, children with light voices to another group with dark voices, or children with high voices to another group with low voices. This is the most dramatic arrangement because it makes use of contrasting voices. It is good for poems which have questions and answers. So, mao ni siya ang giingon ganina nga naay voice blending or mag-ilis-ilis of tone sa voice according to lines. So the fourth one is the unison. Poems expressing strong and powerful emotions are best interpreted by the whole speaking group rather than by part, grouping, or the semi-choruses. This is the most difficult type since it requires the ability to speak together at the same time with perfect timing, proper control, and volume of voice. So the last one is line a child. Line a child is each line of a poem is read by a different child. So example, na ay 10 ka lines ang poem. So, and mga 10 sad ang imong students or ang mo read sa line. So, each reader will have one line to ano, perform. Okay, so sunod. Kinds of voices or semi-choruses. There are three types of voices used in choral speaking or reading. So, can you please read these three Masayon.
First is the light or high voices. For reading or saying lines that suggest fun, happiness, brightness, for asking questions, and last, a male asks the questions. Second, dark or low voices. For saying lines that suggest mystery, terror, sadness, solemnity, or for answering questions unless a female answers the question. And third is the medium voices for blending all voices, for relating the narrative, for introducing the characters, and for giving explanation.
Thank you so much, Masayon, for reading that. So, okay, for the light or high voices, this this kind of voice will be used to indicate the mood of the poem. Example, from fun and energetic ang mood sa poem, or ang theme is kanang mag fun, mag-enjoy. So the performers will use light or high voices. So for the second is dark or low voices. So i-use ni nga voice kung ang kind of poem is medyo dark ang theme, or kana depressing or tragedy, mystery, terror, or sadness, may nga na. So for the medium voices, this is used to blend all voices to balance. This is yes to balance the voice used in choral speaking. So steps in choral speaking. The first step is to read a poem selected from its content. The teacher or conductor reads the poem to the class or group. If copies of the poems can be furnished to the group, they can follow teacher's reading and they can concentrate on the content of the poem. Second is to determine the type and the mood of the poem. The mood of the poem will determine the kind of voices or semi-choruses to be used. Third is to understand the meaning of the poem. The meaning of every new word or phrase, especially words of unfamiliar or strange significance. Fourth is to know the rhythmical nature of the poem, the tempo and movement of in the poem. Fifth, read the poem with the children. Spot pronunciation faults. After pointing out pronunciation faults, show how diction can be improved. Sixth is repeat the selection together. Try several interpretations in order to decide on the best arrangement. Seventh is apportion the parts and lines to the children. Let them say the poem without your help. Eighth is to make sure that the voices blend properly. See to it that no one's voice could be heard about the others or trailing behind the others. And the last is avoid sing-song recitation. So for the values, poems also have values just like short story, parables, or fables. So can you please read the values for us, Akla?
It enhances reader appreciation for poetry. It enriches the art-like experience, expanding imagination and sympathy. It develops used speech habits, articulation, and enunciation. It develops self-confidence and poise. It develops cooperation and social understanding.
Thank you so much, Akla, for reading. Uh, so please remember these values. Okay. Yes, this is important to impart in the poems when interpreting poems by the means of choral speaking or reading. So, mao na to siya end of mao na to siya for our topic, mao to ang last part. So yes, that is the end of the discussion. So now may na learn students. Okay, thank you. So may I ask what to summarize your learning, can you please share what you've learned to us, Seno?
So, in this discussion, we have learned the definition of choral speaking, the types of choral speaking, the types of voices, and also the steps and the values of choral speaking. So, from there, we realize how important and significant choral speaking is, tracing from its history and how much it has evolved today, since we have also had that activity when we were in the when we were in high school, or the previous year of high school. So um, through choral speaking, we are able to share, we are able to interpret a certain literature, may it be prose or poetry, um, in a way that fits to its mood, or to how it should be interpreted, so that the audience will learn to appreciate it and learn to understand the piece, or the literature piece. So that's it.
Thank you so much, Seno, for sharing to the whole class your earnings in our discussion. Yes, I agree. Sakto dito na ni mong gisulti. So for now, atagan ta mo og activity so that ma-apply ninyo ang tanan ninyong na-learn sa atong discussion today. So for your activity, so as a class, choose mag-present pa din ko og kanang mga sample forms ninyo. So as a class, ay kadto sa wait ako sa tong ano na akong sample forms. So makita ra ni mabasa ra ni ninyo ang akong present na kaning sample form. Anyone? Ay kadto sa mabasa ra.
Yes,
Ah,
sir.
so mo ni siya ang mga sample forms which is suitable to be used on choral speaking or reading. So Solomon Grundy, what does the bee do? And who has seen the wind? So now that nakita na ninyo ang sample forms, uh, so as a class, kamutanan, I want you to choose one poem nga inyong nagustuhan yun. So the vote of the majority will be the chosen poem, and I will give you 15 minutes to practice on yes, refer to the rubrics below. This is how I will grade your performance during the activity. Uh, yes, we will we will start the activity right after the 15 minutes. So now that the 15 minutes is done, so and your chosen poem will be Solomon Grundy. So I want you now to perform, and I will listen to your performance because I will grade you now. So just tell me when you're ready, and you can immediately start with your performance. Ready na? Okay, start now.
Start na?
Yes, start na mo. Pwede na mo mag-start. One, two, three, start.
Sa
Solomon
Solomon
Grandi.
Grandi,
Born
Born on
on a
a
born on a
Monday.
Monday,
Christine
Died
on
on
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Married on Wednesday.
married on Wednesday,
Took
Took
ill
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 on
on
Thursday.
Thursday,
Grew
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 worse
worse
worse,
on
on
Friday.
Friday,
Died
died
on
died on
on
Saturday.
Saturday,
Buried
buried
on
on
Sunday.
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 And that
And
was
that
the
was
end
the
That
end of
was our
Solomon
of Solomon
Grandi.
Grandi.
So thank you so much everyone. Your performance was very satisfactory pero kailangan lang din siya og more synchronization and unison next time. So more practice pa lang din. Okay? So before we end our class, I will be giving you an assignment. Ayaw ka bala ka is kay sayo naman ni siya makita na ay ang assignment is all about our discussion today. So it's so for your assignment mao ni siya. So okay ra somebody from your class will take a screenshot on the questions so that you can share it to your class. Send the picture in your GC aron makahibaw tanan ninyong classmate. So before we end our class, wala pa ba wala na may mga pangutana about the topic, mga clarifications, wala na. Wala na. So thank you so much everyone. That is all for today and God bless in you. Advance, advance Merry Christmas. Goodbye.
Thank you, sir.
Goodbye.
Thank you, sir.
Goodbye. Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Goodbye.